So what we're going to look at. Oh, you can't see very well, can you? That was the wrong one. I'm not sure how to make that better. All right, so now we're going to start the notes. Can you guys see it fairly well? All right, so you guys should have this on your paper. Hey, guys. So when we're looking about how to add these things, what do you guys know about adding fractions? Yeah, you guys have to have the same thing at the bottom of the fraction. So the denominator has to be the same. So in this case, these two denominators definitely aren't the same. So we have to figure out what we have to do to make them the same. It's the 7.6 notes. So first thing we have to do is we have to factor the bottom of this part so that we know what's on the bottom. So if we're going to factor it, we want to find something that multiplies the 10 and adds the 7, which is just going to be 5 and 2. Then when we use a little box, we have x squared, 5x, 2x, and then 10, which is going to be x plus 5 and x plus 2. So we can rewrite this as 1 over x plus 5 times x plus 2. And then plus 4x over x plus 5. So what do we have to do to make these two denominators the same? So what do we have to change about this one? Yeah, so it has to have the x plus 2 in it, right? So did a lot of you guys do the 7.5 notes? So if you did the 7.5 notes, it talked about how to find the least common denominator. So what you have to do is you have to multiply this side by x plus 2 on the bottom. So if we multiply just this one by x plus 2, then we also have to multiply the top by x plus 2. So if we multiply the top and the bottom by x plus 2, then what we have left is 1 over x plus 5, x plus 2, plus 4 x plus 2 over x plus 5, x plus 2. And now these bottoms are the same. So then we can add these. So what do we get when we add them? So how would you add these from here? So if you're adding fractions, how do you add the fractions? Do the bottoms change? No, the bottom's going to stay the same. The top is what's going to change. So from here, you just have 1 plus 4 x plus 2 all divided by x plus 5 times x plus 2. So this is going to be what you have. So that's what happens when you add them, is that you end up with something that is added these two together, but with the same bottom. You guys have any questions about that? Does this make sense, how you're trying to find get them to have the same denominator at the bottom, and then you have to add them together from there? Does that make sense? You guys have any questions? So I'm going to go to the next one. So if this next one is 1 over, it's this. So you guys have this on your paper. So the first thing we're going to have to do is, again, factor the bottom here. So if we're factoring this bottom, what do we get? So if you got, I'm going to let you guys factor that and then tell me what's going to be here on the bottom. So what was this one factored? So it's x minus 6, x plus 2. So then if we factor this other side, what are we going to get? So this one, we don't have to factor it with the x in the box, right? We just have to find something that goes into both of these things at the bottom. So what's that one going to be? How can we make that a little simpler? Yeah, so if we look at this other side, we can have the 4 times x plus 2, right? So now we can see we have x plus 2 in both of these, but what don't we have? What do we need to change about the bottoms to make them the same? So what do we have to change about this one? So yeah, you have the 4x, it's 4x plus 8, right? Is that what's on your paper? So if you have 4x plus 8, then you can take the 4 out where you have the rectangle. We have the 4x Does that make sense? So what do we need to change about this side to make it similar to this side? So what does this one over here have? So they have the x plus 2 in common, right? And then this one has an x minus 6. And what does this one have that this one doesn't? It has a 4. So to get the 4 on this side, we have to multiply it by 4 on the bottom. And then, but we also have to multiply it by 4 on the top. But then we're just going to have the x minus 6 and the x plus 2 left. And then what are we going to have on this side? So what do we have to multiply this side by to get what we have over here now? We have to multiply by x minus 6. So we have the 3x, and we have to multiply it by the x minus 6 on the top and on the bottom. So now we have the same thing on the bottom and on the top, right? So does it help to have the different colors knowing what's coming from where? You guys, is that helpful? Okay. So now that we have the same thing on the bottom, what can we do? So we don't want to distribute anything because we're adding, right? So then we just want to add it together. So then we're going to have the 4 plus 3x times the x minus 6 all divided by the 4x minus 6 x plus 2. Oops. So then this is what we're going to have left. Does that make sense? So do you guys have any questions about when you're adding all this together so far? Doesn't seem like it. So we'll go to the next one real quick. Now, this one's a little bit different because there's only one term in the bottoms, right? So what do we have to do to make the two bottoms the same? Yeah, so these colors are switched up. So there's a 4 over here, and there's not a 4 over here. So we'll need to put a 4 on this side. But what's on over here that... So there's not a second y. So when we think about this side, what do we have to multiply this side by to get the same thing? Yeah, it's just going to be 4. So we're going to have -2 times 4 divided by, divided by the, oh man, getting confused. The xy squared, then we're going to have to multiply it by 4 over here too. So this is where we have what's coming from this side. And then what do we have to change about what's on this side to get the same thing on the bottom? So what's different over here? The bottom one. So the other thing different over here is that the y needs to be squared, right? So that means we have to multiply it by another y. So to do that, we're going to add, let's start with, oh man, these colors. So we want to multiply by another y on the top and on the bottom. And we want to multiply it by what we already had, which was the 3x and the 4xy. So when we multiply that in, then we get the 4xy squared on the bottom. It's going to be divided by 3xy. It's going to be plus the -8 divided by 4xy squared. So we have the 4xy squared on the top and on the bottom. And when we add them both together, what are we going to have? So again, we're not changing the bottoms when we add the things together. So we're just going to add the tops together. What is it? So you're just adding the -8 to the 3x plus y. So when you're adding those together, you're just going to have the -8 plus 3xy over 4xy squared. Right? Because you're just adding the tops and the two tops together, and they're both over what's the same on the bottom. Does that make sense? So looking at the next one, it's going to be a little bit different because in this case, we're subtracting them. So we're going to have the first same initial steps where we have to factor both here what's on the bottom, yeah, just what's here on the bottoms. So when we factor this one, what are we going to get? So what's going to be here on the bottom? X minus 3, x plus 1. Right, and then it's minus 3 over, how can we change this one a little bit so that it's has something that's the same as over here? So how can we factor something out of this? Since there's both of the 4's there, what can we do? Yeah, we can just have it as 4x plus 1. So then what do we need to change about the bottoms to be able to subtract these two things. Yeah, we have to multiply by the x minus 3 on this one. What do we have to do to this one? Yeah, we have to multiply by the 4. Yeah, so on this side, we have to multiply by the x minus 3. On this side, we have to multiply by the 4. So we have the 2x over x minus 3, x plus 1, and then we have to multiply by the 4. And we also have to multiply the top by the 4. So we get the 4 times the 2x and the 4 times the x minus 3, x plus 1. And then minus, we have the 3, 4x plus 1 that we have to multiply x minus 3 by. So when we have all these things, what does this end up being? So 4 times 2x, what's that? Yeah, it's just 8x over the 4x minus 3, x plus 1, minus 3x minus 3 over the 4x plus 1, x minus 3. So what's going to be the 8x minus 3 times x minus 3? So what are we going to get here? Yeah, so it's just going to be the 8x minus the 3 times x minus 3. And then on the bottom, we have the 4x minus 3, x plus 1. And then actually what we can do with this one, even though we don't really have enough room because I didn't leave it there, is we can distribute this 3 out, and then we'll have the 8x, I'm going to try and write it kind of small here, minus 3x plus 9. And then we have something that we can combine here, right? 8x and 3x just come to 5x plus 9. So then, if this simplifies down to 5x plus 9, then we can just write that on the top. Because that's a little bit simpler way to write it than what we had before. So I think we've got one more that it's also going to be a subtraction. So the bottom on this side's already, it's only got one thing. So we don't have to worry about anything else on this side. But we still have to go to the last slide. All right, so if we've got this one, what's that going to factor to? If we've got the x squared plus 6x plus 8, we're going to have to factor that so that we can figure out what the two things are. So what's this going to factor to? So if we got the x plus 4 and the x plus 2 minus x plus 3 over x plus 2. So what are we going to have to change about this one over here to get the same denominators? So to get the same bottom, the denominator, what are we going to have to multiply this one by? Yeah, the x plus 4. So we're going to have, oops. So we're going to have the 2x, x plus 4, x plus 2, minus the x plus 3, x plus 2, and that's where we have to throw in the x plus 4 on the top and on the bottom. And then when we add, or we're subtracting the 2x minus x plus 3, x plus 4, right? But, well, we'll do that first. So then we get, on the bottom, we get the 2x minus x plus 3, x plus 4, all divided by x plus 4 times x plus 2. But then we can distribute out what we have here on the bottom. So if we do that, we have 2x, the 2x, and what do we get when we distribute all this out? We get minus x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. So we have the x plus 4 and the x plus 2 still on the bottom. Then we can just, all of these things end up being negative, right? Because we have to distribute the negative out. And then we can take away the 2x from in there. So if you guys just, there's going to be like 2 more minutes. Then we'll be finished with this. You guys can work on the worksheet. But when this negative one distributes all out, it gets kind of complicated because then you get 2x minus x squared, and we end up being minus 7x because we have the 3x and the 4x, minus 12. And then if we can combine the 2x and the negative 7x, what are we going to have left? So if we can combine these two things, what are our x's that are going to be left? Yeah, it's just going to be negative 5. So we have negative x squared minus 5x plus 12 divided by x plus 4, x plus 2. So this is going to be the last answer that we want. And that's what happens when you add them. So pretty much the steps for adding and subtracting any of these rational expressions is going to be find a common denominator, make them both equal to what we had before in terms of that common denominator. So that's what it would mean, like getting to here is writing this. These two are the same thing. They just have a common denominator here now. So it's finding the common denominator and then just doing the adding and subtracting. And that's kind of all you really have to do. It's not too difficult, right? Do you guys have any questions? Was that very confusing? Or did you guys get it? Which one? Was it confusing? Okay. So the rest of the period, you guys have to work on that worksheet. So you guys can go ahead and do that. And then if you have any questions, let me know.